We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.
Good morning and welcome to the Monday edition of Free Association Radio. This is Robert Phoenix, broadcasting to you live from the heart of Central Texas. The weather report here today is cloudy with a chance of rain. And obviously we could use the rain, much like most of the West Coast, especially in the area surrounding Yosemite where there is a massive fire going on right now. And it's fire season. They call it fire season in California. And the reason they call it fire season is because theoretically everything dries up, which is somewhat the case. I mean, there is a seasonal thing going on there, but my experience is a lot of these fires are started, that they are arson. And the end game with the arson and these fires is to steal property and to move private ownership away from the people. I saw it clearly when I was in San Diego. I've talked about this before, and this was in the year of 2004. There was a massive fire that took place in two parts of San Diego, North County, San Diego, where I lived at that time, in a place called Escondido. And hold on a second. What do we got here?
Incoming call from unknown.
Unknown. I think I know who this is. Hello? May I ask who's calling? Oh, hey, Karen. I'm in the middle of my radio show right now. Can I call you back in about 50 minutes? No problem. Okay, thank you. Bye-bye. There we go. Sorry about that. These things happen. By the way, that person on the other end of that line is from Guy MTV, and I'll be doing a monthly series on Guy MTV around astrology and current events, much like what you hear throughout this show, only a little bit different. We're hoping to put together a live piece here in Austin, which could be challenging because I'm only shooting a half an hour, and getting people to a location for a half an hour sometimes is difficult. But that's the plan, and the paperwork is all pretty much set. I just have to change a few things up. And but anyway, if you haven't heard the news, I will be on Guy MTV, and that will be starting in September / October, along with Daniel Pinchbeck. Daniel also has a show on Guyam, and that's taking place also in a live venue. And David Wilcock has a show on Gaiam. So the face of Gaiam TV is changing a little bit. It's moving away from sort of the more traditional, alternative, kind of new agey faces that you may be familiar with, and there's an undercurrent of some very different thinking, ideas, and perspectives now that are coming into play. I'm really excited about it, and I'm a big fan of Jay Widener, who of course is the head of production at Gaiam, and has been responsible for me coming on to the Gaiam team. So I'm looking forward to that, working with Jay, and and giving you guys more fresh content that hopefully will rock your world during interesting times. So anyway, just to get back to the fire piece, there were these two major fires in Southern California. There was one in East County and the one in North County where I lived. And the one in East County was perhaps the worst of the two, because it just incinerated and melted homes. And the problem with the homes is that they were underinsured, even though the people that own the homes didn't understand that. And the reason why they were underinsured is because their homes were appraised at a certain value at a certain point in time, but that appraisal doesn't match kind of where the home would be worth in the time that it would be time to be rebuilt, and that would be based on the production costs and the hardware and the labor and all that stuff that goes around building a home. So you have really two appraisals. There's the appraisal for what the house was worth and the appraisal for what the house would be built at. And there's a big gap between those two. So a lot of people had to leave because they couldn't afford to make up the shortfall, whether it was $85,000, $100,000 because they were underinsured. They'd either have to get a much smaller house or they would have to take the money and run. And a lot of people chose the latter. Quite a few of them fought their insurance companies and basically said that, look, I thought I was insured to the maximum that I could be insured with this house, which would then help me rebuild the house because I do have fire insurance. Now, one of the things that happened during that time was that Blackwater had come to San Diego and was looking to open up a shop in East San Diego, and the people there voted no to Blackwater. And it wasn't. Now, I'm not saying that Blackwater set the fires, but it wasn't too long after that they had these fires in that area, and people were just SOL, mainly because they didn't have their own fire department. It was unincorporated. Now, there were people that had their own fire department that they had hired, which is interesting because those people had their houses saved. Now, the assumption is that if Blackwater had been there, they could have saved all these houses. But because they weren't, well, guess what? The houses burned down. So that was going on, and then the fire in North County, San Diego was going on. And there was another one in Simi Valley. And the one in North County was started in a place called Julian. Anyway, the reason I'm sharing this with you is because there's a major fire going on in Yosemite right now. And it's really unfortunate. And we hope that they can get some relief and some rain or whatever they need in order to bring that very serious situation under control. Speaking under control, or out of control for that matter, we've been riffing on Miley Cyrus over on Facebook today. And if you haven't seen the Miley Cyrus performance with Robin Thicke for the Blurred Lines song that Thicke is famous for or infamous for, if you don't know about Blurred Lines, I highly recommend that you watch the song because it is probably... Do you remember a long time ago when Robert Palmer came out with Addicted to Love, and he had those Helmut Newton-esque models faking playing on guitar and playing the drums? You know, people thought at that time, oh boy, Robert Palmer, he's crossing some boundaries there. Look at those women, short skirts. I could even see some of their boobies through their sweaters, and he's objectifying women, and I mean, it was really, kind of, it wasn't a huge, it wasn't a huge spectacle, it wasn't a huge controversy, but people talked about it, right? I mean, he was pushing the envelope a little bit. Anyway, Addicted to Love, Rob Palmer makes Blurred Lines seem like Dick and Jane in the ABC books. Okay, Blurred Lines is essentially three people: Robin Thicke, T.I., and Pharrell. Pharrell is the producer of the track, and Robin Thicke sings most of sings almost all the lyrics. I don't know who wrote it. They ripped off Marvin Gaye. They had a big fat Marvin Gaye sample that they use. So the song sounds quite familiar in some ways, especially if you have any working knowledge of Marvin Gaye and his back catalog. And in the song, there is this, kind of strange montage of mindless women doing mindless sex acts. So if we were to look at this from the perspective of, mind-controlled Hollywood sex slaves, aka MK Ultra, these women would absolutely fit into that model, because these guys are getting them to do whatever they want. And the whole notion of Blurred Lines is, are they wearing anything at all? Because most of them are wearing these bodysuits, these flesh bodysuits, so they're blurring the line between the physical form with clothing on it and not. There's a blurred line between, is it tasteful, is it tasteless? A blurred line between, is it art, is it junk? There's all these blurred lines. If they use the Marvin Gaye sample, to what extent can they use it? Another blurred line. And it is actually, and I would not necessarily consider myself a feminist, though I do my best to respect women. It is an affront to women, that video. It is a total affront to women. It treats women in ways that sets them back decades. We're talking decades. And what's fascinating is that Robin Thicke fancies himself as a feminist, that he's done something to liberate women from their own kind of sexual slumber and their inability to release themselves into the present moment, whatever that may be. So it's actually a very kind of strange position to have and to hold in a video which is just absolutely and utterly tasteless and does nothing for either sex, to be honest with you. So what happened last night was Robin Thicke sang the song with Miley Cyrus, who was completely out of her mind. I mean, out of her freaking mind. She was wearing, again, something very similar to the video, where she was wearing a very skimpy, flesh-colored bikini bottom and a flesh-colored tube top, and really that's about it. So the whole idea here was for her to appear as naked as she could on stage, and she seemed like she was possessed. And when I use that word, I don't use it lightly. I don't use it like she was, acting crazy and, for all intents and purposes, mimicking or mirroring some kind of strange possession. She actually seemed possessed. Like there was something inside of her that was having its moments right there on stage at the VMAs, which is where this took place. If you watch the video, you'll see that she has two little horns. It's her hair that have been braided into horns. So she has the symbolic look of a devil. And her tongue is almost absurdly large. I mean, her tongue is, it's almost like one of those cartoon tongues from the Chick Jones cartoons, where, you know what I'm talking about, where they have the dog, who's panting after another dog and his tongue comes out, and it's like, oh my God, that tongue is, it's like a staircase. There's 3 levels to that tongue, right? Very same thing. She's got this tongue that is just, completely extended out of the side of her mouth and twisted. And there's nothing even remotely sexy about that tongue. Now, there are tongues you can look at, and they can be large tongues, and you can say, that's actually really provocative and kind of sexy. But this tongue was not. This tongue was doing things they were completely unnatural and completely unsexy. And it was almost like she was like a dog. You know, she was almost like she was baying like a dog. And she had if you go to a sporting match, they have these foam fingers that you can buy and you can hold up, right? We're number one. She used that foam finger to play with herself on stage, then also play with Robin Thicke's member as well. This was all going on. This is a family show, although if it were my family, they would not be watching the VMAs. No way. No way. So she's doing this, and she's really engaging in a very lewd sex act, which has nothing to do with art, or it wasn't even like the sex act of a highly trained stripper, who at times can be really provocative and erotic. There was nothing erotic about this at all. It was trashy, right? It was she was the epitome of trash. And what's sad is, if you go back into Miley Cyrus's history, and I've talked about this on Facebook, and in fact, one of my first posts on my website was about Miley Cyrus and Hannah Montana. This was a long time ago, even before I was doing the astrological stuff, and how she assumes two different personalities. You know, she is, when she was young, we're talking, this is back in 2006, so I think she's 19 now. So in 2006, that would have made her 13 years old. So she was just a young teen girl, right? And she was doing her Disney show, Hannah Montana, which was incredibly successful. I mean, if you were a little girl during the years 2005, 2006, 2007, probably to 2010, you watched Hannah Montana. You watched that show. You went home from school every day to watch Hannah Montana. And who was Hannah Montana? She was a girl that went to high school, but she was also a rock and roller. And she had this whole secret life that took place at night after all the kids are studying and have gone to bed. She's out rocking in the free world so that she can, live this double life. So there's this whole notion of the double life or the double existence or the double self that's built into the show. She's two different people. So the split, the duality is taking place in her character, but also in all the kids that watch her character. And this whole split has been going on for a very long time. You can see it clearly in comic books where you have the ego and you have the alter ego. You'd have Tony Stark and you have Iron Man, you have Bruce Wayne, you have Batman, Clark Kent. Actually, Clark Kent is three personas in one. He's actually Kal-El, Clark Kent, and Superman. So he is a trinity of personalities, right? So this split takes place on her, and so all these kids, mostly girls, watch this and they become indoctrinated into having compartmentalized lives, that there's the self and then there's the secret self that does things that nobody else knows about. Well, in the show, her father, Billy Ray Cyrus, plays her manager / handler. And in the show, he's got kind of this dark vibe about him. Imagine that. And he winds up, taking her deeper and deeper into the realm of rock and roll, which gets pretty, for that show, it tends to get pretty dark. But for the most part, Disney plays it straight. They throw in some symbols. They throw in some storylines that will activate young girls, perhaps at that point or maybe at a later point. But what they really do is they build trust and rapport with their audience through Hannah Montana, right? And so these girls have this subgenerational relationship with Miley Cyrus / Hannah Montana. she goes through the show. She goes through the next few years into puberty, and now she's, dating the kid who plays is in the Hunger Games. What's his name? Liam Hedges or whatever his name is. Looks like Jeff Bridges' son, by the way. So she winds up dating him, and she's for all intents and purposes has a life that looks on the surface like it's respectable. But what we've been seeing here with her over the course of the last few months is a classic case of breakdown. Like her programming is breaking down. You can see that there have been events where she's lashed out at her father. She's trying her very best to take all those fragmented pieces of her brain and put them together into one cohesive whole. Now, who else have we seen on the VMAs that lost it? It was Britney Spears, and this is around the same time Britney was having her breakdown, her meltdown, trying desperately to shed her Britney image because it was that image that was haunting her, right? She went in and she shaved her hair. She went through that whole strange and bizarre thing. Miley Cyrus has been doing something similar. So then what Britney does is she has that very strange performance, on the VMAs. And so we're seeing this kind of mirror event between the two of them in which takes place. So, but you have this generation of girls who have bought into Miley/Hannah through trust and rapport. That's what's happened. And when we see that show last night, what happens to these girls? Where do their loyalties lie? Are they repulsed from what they're watching? Do they decide that they're going to do something different with their lives? Or on some level, do they say, oh, wow, that's cool. Or, hey, look, she's really getting to be who she wants to be. I mean, is that really what's happening? I don't know. I don't have a 16-year-old kid or a 17-year-old kid, girl who watched Hannah Montana. So I don't have the answer to that. But we do know that they are there, they're watching, and they have a relationship with Hannah/Miley based on hours and hours and hours of watching her after school. So this was in some ways aimed at them. Now there's an early scene with the video where she's dancing with these teddy bears, and most people who know anything about strange sex acts and lurid sex acts know that the teddy bear is a symbol for pedophilia. So we have the stage is littered with teddy bears, huge teddy bears, people in teddy bear suits actually dancing. So whoever is choreographing this thing understands and knows kind of what world Miley Cyrus has crawled out of, literally. It's a very strange video. It's for some people, especially the Smith family, it is shocking. There's a picture of Will Smith and Jaden Smith and Willow Smith and Will Smith's wife, Jada Pinkett, right? Jada Pinkett Smith. And so there's all four of them. And his son, his daughter, and his wife seem shocked. Will Smith does not seem shocked in that photo. I caught some flack for that, by the way, when I put it up on Facebook, because it looks like he's smacking his lips. I mean, you can see clearly it looks like he's got his tongue hanging out the right side of his mouth, and he's got his eyes wide open, but not in the same way that the others do. He's having a very different reaction to what's taking place on stage. But what's interesting is that how the images have become juxtaposed. So what we see is a black family who in this moment, in this freeze frame of time, becomes the moral authority in that moment with that picture. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is a really interesting kind of image and symbol that is being put out. Are they stand-ins for the Obama family? I don't know. Clearly, there is an echo effect between Will Smith and Obama and their relationship with each other and the connection with two kids, each having two kids, right around the same age. Actually, I think, I think they are right around the same age. So, and then what we have on stage is we have this person who's just completely and utterly out of control, and she happens to be white, Caucasian. So there's this juxtaposition. You know, who knows? If you go back, let's go back to the 1950s and flip the script. The person on stage in the 1950s would have been Little Richard. And then the people in the audience likely would have been a white audience. So we've come full circle in a lot of ways in terms of how this is viewed, how it's portrayed, and who is determined at any given point in time to be the social or moral arbiter of situations that we, the masses, are being force-fed. Now, you don't have to, ingest these things. I didn't watch the VMAs, but you can watch these things as they have happened, and I caught that last night at about midnight here in Texas, and I saw it, and I was utterly shocked and on a lot of levels, and yet on other levels I wasn't shocked at all. It was par for the course. So we've got that going on. It is the bread and circus. It is the theater of the absurd. It is the spectacle of society being played out right before our eyes, dazzling us, putting us into a trance so that there are other things swirling, whirling, moving around us, unbeknownst to us and our knowledge. And you ask yourself, well, what might some of those things be? I can tell you right now that probably the biggest ticket item on the face of the planet right now is what's happening in Syria and what is probably about to happen in Syria. If you haven't noticed it or weren't aware of it, last week there was supposedly a sarin chemical gas attack on children in Syria. Now, the UN, the United States, and the UK are all blaming Assad for this brutal and cruel attack on Syria's children. I don't think Assad would do that to Syria's children. I don't think he would do that at all. There are two theories that are prevalent here: that the children are faking, that they are not actually dead due to the sarin gas. And then the other theory is that if they indeed died, that it was not Bashar, but it was the rebel forces, the revolutionaries, the freedom fighters of Syria that gassed those kids. In any case, they will be used as a pretext for war. Trust me on this. It will happen. They did it in Iraq. They did it quite easily in Iraq. There was no problem. They've done this with other regime changes where they've justified going in and using immense force in order to remove somebody who is the head of state. They did this with Gaddafi in Libya. Now, what's going on here is that they've been actually fighting in that war with Syria for almost 2 years now, and Bashar al-Assad is kicking their ass. So he's got a very sophisticated network of intelligence. He also has the moral authority to defend his country, unlike others who did not necessarily have the moral authority. It's kind of like Gaddafi. Even though he had great love for his country, I think he had compromised himself so much that he didn't have the centrifugal spiritual force in order to repel the insurrectionists in his country. And as a result, he was routed. That's not the case in Syria. Syria also has a somewhat clandestine relationship with Russia, which has been providing it with weapons and intelligence as well. So they've been able to hold off the UN forces as they are aggregated with groups like Al-Qaeda and perhaps even the Muslim Brotherhood to go in and overthrow Assad and take the country over and give it democracy. Democracy is so bloody. It's like it's supposed to be this great thing, and all it does is, kind of manifest itself in these extremely bloody and violent and long drawn out quote unquote revolutions that are dreamt up in places like I don't know, the Brookings Institute or GINSA or wherever they cook up these schemes. So what's happening now is they're getting ready to fight. They're getting ready to throw down in Syria. And this is going to be the U.S., Britain, of course, and the Allies, Germany, France, perhaps Italy, Spain, Portugal, whoever has the money, whoever has the wherewithal, whoever has the marching orders to go in there and get their young men killed. This is what's taking place, and it could take place very, very quickly. I would say likely if they wanted to accelerate this, it would probably be on the new moon, where the skies are the darkest. So that's going on. That's very, very real, the Syrian conflict. And meanwhile, we're just all pretty much entranced by the Miley Cyrus spectacles and pro football and all this other stuff in the world. So that's happening. Another thing which came to my attention, and I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to play this after I'm going to play some music. So let me play this after some music, and then we'll come back, and I'm going to read you something that took place on the 8th of August, which you're going to need to know about. Trust me on this. You're going to need to know about this. What do I want to play here? Why don't I play... why don't I play a little Kenji Williams? I haven't played Kenji in a long time. This is Bella, B-E-L-A. This is from Kenji Williams, also known as ABA Structure, a really gifted musician and visionary. So let's play this, and then when I come back, I'll read you the next story. Okay, here we go, Kenji Williams. That was Bella, and I unfortunately made a mistake. It is not by Kenji Williams, but it is by the Bindi Society. So let's set the record straight. The Bindi Society, and that is from their release from last year, Falling in Light, and my dear, dear friend, Barbara Imhoff plays harp on that track, and Barbara is really struggling right now with cancer of the ovaries, ovarian cancer, and my heart goes out to her, and wishing her nothing but the best and the potential for a quantum recovery. And she's in good hands, and she's doing everything she can, both from a practical, quote-unquote, allopathic side and also from an alternative side to, beat this deadly virus which is attacking her body. Anyway, that's Bela from their record Falling in Light, the Bindi Society with Barbara Imhoff on harp. So let's talk about what else is happening. While we are being led around by our noses, there's other things going on, as there always are. I found this today in the comment section of Lasha Darkmoon's latest article about Syria. And what she did is she basically transcribed an interview with Gordon Duff from Veterans Today, who made no bones about that this is what's going to happen, that there's going to be a war in Syria. I mean, he really just came right out and said it. So in the comments, I found this, and it's called Global Looting. The new EU bail-in law was passed 8 days ago. So I'm going to read this because it gives you a sense as to what may be in the works here. They don't pass laws like this unless something is moving and shaking. So here, this is the author here is the blog is called hatforuk.wordpress.com. hatforuk.wordpress.com. And if you go there, the author of the blog essentially asks people for if they want to blow the whistle on society or organization or group or faction of the government. There's a link in there that you can email him to blow your whistle with. Hat4UK, HAT for the number UK.wordpress.com. So I'm just going to read this to you here. Three beaming Eurocrats, Barroso, Van Rompuy, and Lithuanian Dalia Grybauskaitė, emerged triumphant from a session 2 days ago in which they mapped out the biggest bank heist in world history. This is to put flesh on the Eurozone law hastily passed on August 1st, while EU citizens are on holiday, to deal with the event of a bank collapse. Under this draft proposal, which many expect to be applied to the entire EU, no depositor, big or small, will in future be able to feel safe with money deposited in a bank. The slog now calls for those who represent us across the entire cultural spectrum of European society to do something. In a barely read piece a month ago, the International Business Times reported on the rapidly drafted new EU law for overhauling its policy on how banks receive bumper bailouts. Be aware this is an EU move, not a Eurozone move. It is already law. It passed on August 1st, and although for now it applies only to the Eurozone, it is an EU law. Hardly anyone has commented on this, but the approach being taken matches word for word the three-card trick George Osborne used 6 weeks ago when he said, in future, taxpayers will not be called upon to bail banks out. It will be down to creditors and the owners. The most remarkable example of doublespeak at the time, I pointed out that creditors are taxpayers, and he's right. So it's not like you will be asked if you want to bail out a bank with your taxes.
the bailout money will simply come from inside the bank itself. Okay, so let's read on here. And so as the establishments daren't ask us for higher taxes to bail out their mates in the banking system, they will take it via, if you like, direct debit. It is exactly the same principle of stealing the Troika wishes to apply to Greek private pension funds. The initial piece at the IBT website noted that the Eurozone leaders agreed upon the major policy shift and also confirmed that the new rules will help protect the taxpayer and move the burden of bailing out the banks onto shareholders and junior debt holders. Again, more bollocks. How will ripping your money out protect you? And note, junior debt holders, aka you and I. Yesterday, from the German site Deutsche Wirtschaftsnachrichten, German Economic News, came a piece reporting that all bets are off as the guarantee of all funds under $100,000 pledge is concerned. Under the current Lithuanian presidency of Dalia Grybauskaitė, the scene left between a trot and a poet, this is the people that choose with the picture. The proposal, as drafted and almost entirely ignored by the Western media, states as follows: treatment will not be the same regardless of size of deposit, but small amount holders will have to wait up to 4 weeks to get their money, depending on how serious the insolvency is. During that time, there will be a maximum withdrawal of $100 to $200 per day. Again, perhaps less, depending on the seriousness of the failure. The EU Parliament allegedly is demanding that deposits of £100,000, 100,000 euros, should be confiscated within 5 days. In the event of a banking collapse, all previous government commitments are null and void. The force majeure of exceptional circumstances can lead to ways around such pledges. Part of the new plan suggests that savers could also be subject to a penalty tax if they have less than $100,000 in the bank. George Orwell could have dropped acid and still not come up with a scheme quite so assumptive and brazenly deranged as this one. It is based on the following insane principles. One, putting money in a bank, putting money in a bank makes every citizen a creditor of that bank, equally prone to confiscation in order to repay. Who exactly? The answer is other banks had owed money. So it's not really our money after all. It's the banking sector's money. And after it's been taxed by the government, despite the fact that we earned it, it's really all bankers' money after all. Unbelievable, the author says. If you have been seditious enough in your life to actually make quite a lot of money legally, then within 5 days, the money that was never really yours will be taken back by its rightful owners, the bankers, or the government rescuing the bankers without doing it within our taxes. Why 5 days? Why not 5 seconds? I mean, it's their money. We were just earning it for safekeeping, right? Of course we were. Anything is exceptional circumstances if they say it is. Even the Nazis in 1933 had to burn down the bloody Reichstag to declare a state of emergency. In 2013, it requires just one dumb, over-leveraged, fuck-witted bank to collapse under the weight of its CEO's ego, and we're all pauperized by law. I think the time has finally come when we must give our legislators and leaders here in the UK a giant kick up the jacksie. And I think the time has come for every decent organization to mobilize even Wayne and Waynetta to GTF off the sofa and start making it clear to the scheming wankers of Westminster that we're not having any of this crap here in Britain. As I tried to point out 2 years ago, this is no longer a political issue. This is a case of one simple rule by which decent citizens must abide. Stealing things is wrong, especially when it's done to repair your own stupid decisions in the past. These are the questions we should address to everyone supposed to represent us starting today. To German sloggers, demand Angela Merkel make the safety of all EU citizens' bank money a solid election pledge next month. To the Christian, Jewish, Muslim, and humanist leaderships of Britain, start an outcry in the media. Why aren't you giving your parishioners more support? Where is the outcry about pilfering from the innocent citizens? Where is the condemnation of illegal and amoral confiscations? To the anti-EU conservative right, to UK KIP and its leader, Nigel Farage, to our own MEPs, especially Dan Hanman, do you realize the delayed referendum on EU membership will come far too late to stop this? When are you going to start spelling this out to your supporters and media context that this is now a matter of citizen survival? Why hasn't there been an uproar in the European Parliament about this? You guys talk a good game, but where's the line in the sand? To the TUC, your members are about to be fleeced by the co-op's management and stand to be ruined by the EU's ECB-driven policy of slashing both the wages and assets of the European workforce. Can we have less political point scoring and more ecumenical organizing action? To the Labour Party leadership, show that you truly are our friend in tough times. Stop doing bloody focus groups and pouncing about between the lines of bland policy statements designed to make you look harmlessly vote-worthy. Come back off your holidays and take a stand. When are you going to start hounding Camelot big time on this iniquitous policy? Or are you complicit in it? Please tell us. To the wingers, I think we call them whiners here in this country. To the whiners, and it won't make any difference, it's nothing to do with me, Brigade. Sorry, but you just ran out of road. Like it or not, you're involved. Start a movement now to remove every penny of current account and deposit monies from the bank. Are you alive, Homo sapiens, or brain-dead lobster? The cooperative scandal is just the beginning. They're going to take our money and leave us all penniless at their mercy. To combat this, we really don't need any slogan beyond this one. Say no to British bank bail-ins. 166 responses, so it got some people's attention, didn't it now? That just passed. So we have that going on. We've got Syria going on. We've got all these activities swirling and whirling around us while we're watching Miley Cyrus get possessed on the VMAs, or the start of the National Football League season, and which, by the way, I am completely and utterly complicit with the NFL. Since I do play fantasy football, I'm just being very open about that. So I do feed the beast in my own way. There's a lot more going on, but I think that those are the big pieces that we need to focus on here and just be aware. Because if you have a financial collapse and you have World War III, happening at the same time, it could get kind of ugly out there, couldn't it? I think it could. I have a new piece up on my site, and that's by Darren Williams. It's actually very, very good. He really gets into the summer blockbusters. It's not finished. I've been having some issues with posting some of his links, and Darren loves to use video to underscore some of his points, so I actually have to go back in and fix some of that stuff up. But it's over on the site now. You can read it. You can get the gist of it, and by the end of the day, we'll have a more complete version of what he's doing. What he's done is he's taken 4 of the summer's blockbuster films. He's taken Iron Man 3, Oblivion, Star Trek, the latest Star Trek, Into Darkness, and the 4th film being Superman, Man of Steel. And he makes all kinds of really interesting points and connections that are fascinating and point towards some very interesting conclusions. I'll let you go over and check it out, robertphoenix.com. You can get there via the front page, the home page, and then click through, and you'll find the story, although it does need to be fixed up a little bit. But we're going to have Darren on, and we're going to talk about that article, and we'll be talking about these summer films and why they're important from many different perspectives and angles. That's up on my site now. And then, of course, over the course of the next few weeks, things are really picking up in terms of guests. Let me just repeat the schedule. We'll probably have some schedule changes because things are a little bit. I think we overbooked for one Friday, so we have to move some things around.
But here's who we're going to have on. We've got John Anthony West and James Swager. They'll be talking about secret civilizations, hidden history, connections between Atlantis and Egypt, and of course the what would we call them? The omnipresent Anunnaki and the Anunnaki civilizations that were on this planet. That's James. That's his strong suit. So we're going to have them on, and then also Courtney Brown, the return of Courtney Brown. I think we're going to try to get into Comet Ison with Courtney Brown. I think that would be an interesting topic and subject matter. And who else are we having on here? Michael, Edward, and Radchick. And we'll get into the Gulf of Mexico and also Fukushima. Looks like there's dolphins that are washing up on shore on the northeastern part of this country. So you couple that with the diseased lobsters, and it doesn't look good for marine life and the loop current coming out of the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. It's actually unfortunate, deeply unfortunate. Of course, we have the corollary on the side of the West Coast. Some of you might be familiar with Ken Adachi. I would actually like to have Ken on the show one of these days. Ken has the website called educateyourself.org, and he's been in the thick of trying to expose stuff for better of 2 decades. Ken's site was one of the first sites on the internet that really got into this material that we're talking about, and I was passed along an email by Ken where he essentially says that Fukushima is a scam, that it's a lie, and that the isotopes are being dropped into our atmosphere via chemtrails, which I've been thinking about for quite a long time anyway. I mean, I've been thinking about that for the last 10 years. Why wouldn't they do that? But perhaps the two are not mutually exclusive. Perhaps Fukushima did happen, and perhaps the chemtrails are also seeding our clouds with radioactive isotopes. So you could probably go to Ken's website, educateyourself.org, and maybe find out more about that if you're interested. In any case, we'll have Ratchet and we'll have Michael Edward on, and that'll be on the 13th of September. That's a Friday the 13th here in the Northern Hemisphere using the Gregorian calendar. Okay, I think that's about it. I think we've come to the end of the show. There's more, obviously, that I can talk. Oh, there is one other thing I wanted to talk about very quickly, and this is a new emerging political player in Egypt. And where is this guy? His name is Al-Sisi, General Al-Sisi, and he is the guy that's replaced Morsi in Egypt. Let me just read his data. Before I wanted to get into him a little bit and look at him, you know, Egypt went through this major crisis, revolution, transformation when Saturn was in Scorpio, and it was the first time they've had any kind of like constitutional amendment or regime change when it was not Saturn in Libra. So they brought this Abdel Fattah el-Sisi. They didn't bring him in. He was the head of the army. He was probably the guy that was running the coup. And I thought to myself, I wonder if he's a Scorpio. Sure enough, he is. He's born on the 19th of November in 1954 in Cairo. So he is a Scorpio. He's a man of the time for Egypt, and he was trained actually in the United States. He also was trained in Egypt, but he's spent a lot of time in the United States, and he knows, you know, who the power players are in that part of the world. And it's very interesting. Keep your eye on this man, El-Sisi. He's been called the Saladin of the Middle East. And of course, Saladin was a major figure. Saladin was the guy that defeated Richard the Lionhearted and the British, the English Templars, the Crusaders. It was Saladin, and he's been linked to Saladin, which is interesting when you begin to think about it. Anyway, he is the new man in Egypt, and we'll see where that goes. He's talking about creating a new United Arab Republic, which existed in the early 60s. And I don't think that that's anything that Israel wants to deal with. All right, that's it. That's the end of the show. And let's reconvene on Wednesday. Let's get into some stars. We're just on the backside of that major celestial, quasi-Star of David. And that happened yesterday and the day before yesterday. Pretty powerful stuff, I have to admit. The challenge with that aspect or that formation was Venus in Libra and the squares that are going on between Pluto and Jupiter and the Uranian opposition. So relationships have taken some intense scrutiny and speculation over the last 48 hours, and people trying to work out what's balanced and what's not. But anyway, I think it's actually a really good aspect and a really good formation, and there's a lot of positivity in there. It's also been called the aspect of war, and this is like the third one in the past month, so it wouldn't surprise me that we're talking about the drums of war in Syria. But there's also plenty of juice in there for you to change your own life. Okay, that's it. I'll see you guys on Wednesday. Use your head to discern what's real, your heart to stay open to what's possible, and please don't look at Miley Cyrus. It's bad for your health. I'll see you on Wednesday. Let's play a little Philip K. Dick here. Here we go.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.